Yasodana Narabraja Janarana Yasodana Nana Praja Janarana Mona Ravana Chadi Yamuna Ravana Chadi Jai Hurad Umadava Kunjabihahude Jayarad Madhava Kunjabihahude Gopijana Valaguma Girivaradahude Gopijana Balaba Girivaradahude Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjahuna Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Monate Ramanachare Yamunate Ramanachare Jai Hurad Madhuva Kunjabihahude Jai Hurad Madhuva Kunjabihahude Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravitakachar Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopavana Sai Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Maturam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Oops. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nivashesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarni. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 43rd chapter, and text 21 to 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're only going to read the first text responsively, and the second text we'll just read myself after that. All right. Pibanta Eva Chakshur Vyam Lahanta Eva Jivoya Jigranta Eva Nasabhyang Slishanta Eva Bahubi. Okay. Vibanta Eva Chakshurvyam Lahanta Eva Jivoya Jigranta Eva Nasabhyam Slishanta Eva Bahubi. Vibanta Eva Chakshurvyam Lahanta Eva Jivoya Jagranta Eva Nasabhyam Slishanta Eva Bahubi. Vibanta Eva Chakshurvyam Lahanta Eva Jivoya Jagranta Eva Nasabhyam Slishanta Eva Bahubi. Eva Nasabhyam Eva Bahubi. Okay, so I'll just read the next text myself. Uchuvarasparam devai yatadrishtam yatashutam tadrupaguna madhurya pragalvya smarataiva. So synonyms. Pibanta, drinking. Eva, as if. Chakshurvyam, with their eyes. Lahanta, licking. Eva, as if. Jivvoya, with their tongues. Jigranta, smelling. Eva, as if. Nasabhyam, with their nostrils. Slishanta, embracing. Eva, as if. Vahubi, with their arms. Uchu, they spoke. Parasparam, among one another. Te, they. Vai, indeed. Yata, just as. Thrishtam, they had seen. Yata, just as. Shrutam, they had heard. Tat, there. Rupa, of the beauty. Guna, qualities. Madhurya, charm. Pragalbya, and bravery. Smarata, reminded. Eva, as if. Translation: the people seemed to be drinking Krishna and Balaram with their eyes, licking them with their tongues, smelling them with their nostrils, and embracing them with their arms. Reminded of the Lord's beauty, character, charm, and bravery, the members of the audience began describing these features to one another according to what they had seen and heard. You can repeat. The people seemed to be drinking Krishna and Balaram with their eyes, licking them with their tongues, smelling them with their nostrils, and embracing them with their arms. Reminded of the Lord's beauty, character, charm, and bravery, the members of the audience began describing these features to one another according to what they had seen and heard. So, purport by the followers of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Naturally, those who assembled in Mathura for the wrestling festival had heard the latest news of Krishna and Balaram's adventures in the city, how the lords had broken the sacrificial bow, defeated the police. Interesting, the word police there. Anyway, and killed the elephant Kuvaliyapida. And now that the people who were seeing Krishna and Balaram enter the arena, their greatest expectations were confirmed. Krishna is the embodiment of all beauty, fame, and opulence, and therefore those assembled in the wrestling arena became fully satisfied by glorifying what they had heard of him and were now seen. So there's some commentaries here. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, this verse describes how they drank the beauty of Krishna. With wide eyes they saw him, with tongues they tasted, with widened nostrils they smelled, and with open arms they embraced. They began to speak about what they had seen, breaking the bow, and heard, such as lifting Govardhan, without chronological order. His form was attractive as his blackish color mixed with red blood, and with the elephant tusk in his hand. He was attractive with qualities like courage. He was sweet with his smiling glances. He showed confidence in breaking the bow without hesitation. Having seen or heard these things, they tried to remember them smarata eva, although they were not qualified and talked about them. And Jiva Goswami states, these two verses are taken together. The word tal, the two boys, should be added as the object of the verse. The people seem to drink them with their two wide open eyes. The dual case is used for the eyes to indicate that each person used his two eyes to drink. They seemed to lick the two boys with their tongues when they began describing the boys' sweetness using their tongues. They seemed to be trying to smell them with greed to obtain their fragrance from far off by their nostrils, which began breathing heavily and opened widely on facing the two boys. It's, of course, an Anubhava. They seemed to embrace the boys with their arms when they moved their arms around in order to see their forms. Arms is used in the plural since when they moved their arms quickly, they appeared to be many rather than two per person. So ecstatic. In other words, it appeared like they had four arms each, which is a described here. Desire for these actions developed amongst the qualified spectators, and thus they carried out actions resembling drinking, licking, smelling, and embracing. Hmm. Yatadrishtam, yatashutam are Odvaye Bhava's indeclinable compounds. First, the word yata should be discussed. It indicates qualifications, successive actions, restriction, and similarity, in the same way, or as much as. Okay. An example of restriction is yata balam. That means according to his strength, one type of comparison. An example of qualification is yata dhanam. That means donation according to qualification. Well, sounds like it indicates similarity, like the word saha or sa in Savanam Davanti. It sounds like a vina. They had seen him break the bow. That much was the limit. They had heard about how he had lifted Govardhan. That much they had heard. According to that, they spoke. This indicates qualification, though, in other words, they were qualified because they heard and they spoke. Shravanam Kirtanam, which is we're going to speak about. Though limitation and qualification are different, here the meaning finally becomes qualification, or similarity may be expressed by they spoke about them similar to what they had heard and seen. Or they were qualified to see events such as breaking the bow according to what they had heard, that Krishna was a portion of Narayan and nothing more than that. Previously, they had doubted, and now this was confirmed by them seeing him personally. They remembered his form as Bhagavan with qualities like unequaled beauty, his sweetness or natural attractiveness of form and qualities which were now somewhat uncovered, and their unlimited nature, Pagalbya. Previously, they had doubted whether these two had these qualities or form or not. In other words, they didn't have full faith. So there were many of these personalities, they were actually progressing in the devotional path. If they were pure devotees, they wouldn't have had any limitations in their faith. So, but they were progressing by hearing, Shravanam and Kirtanam. And then finally they reached the perfectional stage by the mercy of Krishna, which we're going to describe in a second. Previously, they had doubted whether these two had these qualities or form or not. Having seen and heard about them, they would not now forget. They perceive them directly, smarata eva. Although they remember the qualities and form of the two always, now on seeing the form and qualities directly, they were most astonished. Adbhuta. The two seemed to be new objects of remembrance, smarata eva. The words of astonishment are described in the following verses, according to Sridhar Swami, following verses, next few verses. And Sanatana Goswami describes this, let's see, pretty much the same. Okay. There's some additional stuff. So describing that they use their tongues, their eyes, ears, tongues, and noses, and he describes these four are important in order of increasing importance, ending with embracing. So embracing is the topmost. Smelling is superior to tasting, since smelling one can relish all his limbs in garland at once. Let me just continue reading this, such amazing descriptions. Vai means well-known or clear, because the fear of Kamsa for a long time, they did not remember. Just like if you're in anxiety, you don't remember things very well. By seeing their forms, they remember their greatness, they remember their beauty, rupa, and quality. Sweetness and bravery included in their beauty and quality, but they are mentioned separately because of their outstanding nature. Actually, living in Mathura, they never forgot the two boys, but now they had similarity to remembrance. In other words, they didn't forget, but it was brought further to their forefront of the consciousness by seeing Krishna. Pragalbhyam can also mean absence of fear or having all skills. Thus, they describe the beauty, quality, skills, and greatness. Elsewhere, it's described, and I forgot where I read it, that they actually they manifested sometimes forearms because their arms were moving so quickly. So, anyway, let's go back to the text here. Quite an extensive commentary or commentaries by the acharyas. Bhavantaiva chakshurvyam lihantaiva jaivaya Chigrantaiva nasabhyam, slashantaiva bahubhi, uchu parasparam teva yatadrishtam yatadritam, tadrupa guna madhurya, pagavya smarata eva. So, Om Gana Timrandasha, Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Meditam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruvain Maha. So, it appears from the description here that some of these personalities, they were progressing on the path of devotional service because they didn't have full faith in the beginning. So, the progressive path of devotional service is mentioned in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And this, of course, is quoted by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Very simple verse that most of the devotees know. Ado Shraddhatata Sadhu Sangota Bhajanakriya Tato Narta Nivritti Shat Tato Nishto Richistata Tata Shakti Sato Bhavas Tata Prema Bayun Jati Sadakama Yam Premna Parabhave Bhavet Krama. Let's say, yeah, as much as I like myself, I don't like to hear myself in reverb. So, anyway, so this is the progressive path, and as one progresses on this path, one's faith grows. Even though in the beginning it's mentioned ado shraddha, that initial faith is not complete faith, because complete faith is shraddha shabde vishasa kahi sujita nishya. Complete faith is what to actually have a complete trust that if you simply do what Krishna says and what the spiritual master says, everything will be accomplished. That's the description by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So there's no doubt. And of course, Krishna in the Gita does say, for the doubting soul, there's no happiness, neither in this life or in the next. And also this verse, what Shradana Purusha Dharma Shasha Parantapa Prapyamam Nivartante Mritu Samsara Vartmani. For those who don't have faith, Shradana Purusha Dharma Shasha Parantapa, the process of devotional service, Prapyamam Nivartanti, they don't achieve Krishna, but what? Mritu Samsara Vartmani, they return to birth and death in the material world. So this progress, let me describe what this progress is in terms of the verse I just quoted. In the beginning, there's initial faith. That's like interest. Wow, these devotees must have something. Sadhu Sangota, one begins to associate with the devotees, and then one begins to hear about Krishna, which is the description of that was given to the residents of Mathura. They were hearing about Krishna. That's called Bhajana Kriya. Of course, Bhajana Kriya entails more than just hearing about Krishna, but basically the hearing about Krishna is the most important aspect, as we know from the 9 processes of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smarnam, because Shravanam has to be, and it has to be there. Whatever one's primary process of devotional service is, the Shravana is the most important, because you can't do it without Shravana. You can't remember Shravanam, Kirtanam, you can't chant, you can't remember Smaranam, you can't serve the lotus feet, you can't do deity worship, you can't become the friend of Krishna, you can't completely surrender to Krishna unless you hear. So by that hearing process, satam prasangam, but that hearing process must be done in the association of pure devotees, or those who are following strictly. Prabhupada sometimes described pure devotees as those who were following strictly. Prabhupada was asked one time, how many pure devotees are in the movement? Prabhupada said, everyone's a pure devotee in the movement. That means everybody who's in the movement. What does in the movement mean? In the movement means following strictly and serving Prabhupada's society. Then that person can be considered a pure devotee in the same way that a bud in a tree is considered to be the full flower, because in time they will blossom. So we hear Satam Prasangam Mama Virya Samvado Bhavanti Vritkarna Rasayana Kata Joshana Dashu Upavarga Vartmani Shradavratir Bhakti Anukramishati. Um, then we hear about Krishna and the association devotees, Prasangam, Mama Viryasam, about Krishna's heroic activities, which is being described here, like Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill, Krishna breaking the bow, Mama Virya Sambadaha talks about heroism. Bhavanti Ritkarna, and that hearing process affects the heart. So, in other words, one is meant to hear not simply with the ears, but the ears are the opening through which uh, mm, the transcendental sound vibration progresses through the channel uh, to the heart. Karna Rit. Bhavanti Rit Karna. You know, Rit means heart, Karna means ear. Rasayana Kata. And it really gives one happiness. You know, the word rasayana is used sometimes to indicate very tasty medicine. Kata. Kata means talks. Tajoshan Rasu Apavarga Vartmani Shraddha Ratir Bhakti Nukramishi. Then one will progress through the path which I just described here. And the path is, of course, that you, after bhajana kriya, you become free from the anarthas, you become nishta, you become stable in Krishna consciousness 24/7. You get ruchi, you get attached uh, shaktish, and you get bhava, the emotions, and finally prema. But all this is based on getting the Lord's mercy. And the Lord's mercy actually is described by Krishnadas, not Krishnadas Kaviraj, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as his Kripa Shakti, which is manifest through the mouth of pure devotees like His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So this Kripa Shakti is described, I found this quite attractive and quite amazing, the description of the Lord's Kripa Shakti by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which I'm going to read now. He says, the Lord's mercy is his topmost attribute. I'll just repeat. The Lord's mercy is his topmost attribute. And of course, the Lord's mercy, again reiterating, it is coming from His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. And of course, all pure devotees, but for us, through Srila Prabhupada's transcendental sound vibration. His topmost attribute. And this is called the seventh, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Lord's divine attributes. And he calls it His compassion, His mercy, and in Sanskrit, the word is karunya. And here, the description of attaining the Lord's mercy is given, which is very similar to what's happening with the residents of Mathura in the case of seeing Krishna. Even so, as the premi devotee eagerly tries to relish all of Krishna's sweet attributes in full, which the residents of Mathura are doing in full means tasting, smelling, seeing, etc. He feels himself unable to do so because the Lord has unlimited attributes, any more than the chaktuk bird can catch all the drops of rain in his shiny beak. That's a very picturesque metaphor there. You know, the bird actually exists, this particular bird exists by drinking the rain. And he's dependent on the rain. So let's say it was raining like earlier today. Can you imagine just having a little tiny beak, or even your mouth, which is not so tiny, trying to catch all the rain? And that's what it means to try to understand and appreciate Krishna's beauty and compassion. Seeing this is quite an interesting description. The Lord thinks, why do I have so much sweetness in me? So one may say that's ego. But actually, it's not false ego, but it's true. False ego means to believe something about yourself that's false. You understand? Generally, actually, in America, if you use the word ego, it means something that's not so nice. But really, the word ego means the sense of the self. You understand? That's what the word means. Just like in Descartes, he has this saying, what cogito ergo sum, I think, or I'm conscious, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. But anyway, the way we use ego, it's not a bad thing. There's false ego and real ego. So Krishna's real ego, which is not false pride, it's real pride. We're not against pride, we're against false pride. So the Lord thinks, why do I have so much sweetness in me? And so, just to allow his devotee to partake of this sweetness, so this is what's going on here in Mathura. He wants his devotee to take part. He wants to share it, just like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, the Panchatattva. They saw that nobody was willing to pay the price for pure devotional service, so they just broke open the storehouse of love of God and distributed freely. So he reveals his seventh divine attribute, which is Krishna, his compassion. That karunya, this attribute is the expansion of his supreme energy, his mercy, Kripa Shakti, which sits like a great queen in the whirl of the lotus, surrounded by all of his other energies on the petals of that lotus, whose names like Vimala and Utkarshne have been revealed in the Agama scriptures and elsewhere. This power of mercy, also known as Anugraha, that's another name for mercy, manifests herself first in Krishna's eyes. So it comes out of Krishna's eyes. And then appears in the devotees, where she is given different appellations, such as protective affection, Vatsalya, or kindness, Karunya, to those who have moods like servitude, different types of devotees in the different rasas, or as the Lord's heart-melting attractiveness, Chetodrava, which means heart-melting. To those in the mood of romantic love, through this power of mercy, the Lord's all-pervading will, it's called Icha Shakti, which is a very important term, takes on colors in the saintly devotees and elevates even those who are supremely satisfied to a state of transcendental wonder. Is everybody following this? It is through the power of this mercy that the Lord's virtue, known as Bhakta Vatsalya, that's the Lord's mercy, and the Lord is also called Bhakta Vatsal. His protective tenderness towards his devotees. So this is a reciprocal relationship being described in this verse of the Bhagavatam. Is crowned emperor over all of his other attributes. In other words, this Krishna's supreme attribute is his compassion, his mercy, his virtue known as Bhakta Vatsal. Isn't that wonderful? Because generally, God is depicted in other religions or whatever as, being very angry, or the creator, and the lawgiver, which is not necessarily wrong, but his most supreme attribute of compassion is not always depicted in highest fashion, especially in certain religions. When the Christian religion, they actually do depict it, like Jesus Christ being a manifestation of the Lord's compassion. And so these attributes, which were listed by Bhumi Devi in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So here's another description of same thing that's going on in the Bhagavatam. This is also Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation of what he just said. The acharyas like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur not only say something, but they actually purport their own words. So this is called the Piyusha Kana explanation of his own words. The thirst or eagerness of the loving devotee is so powerful that he relishes or cherishes the desire to relish all the Lord's sweetness at once. And here he's elaborating on the chaktak bird. Although the thirsty chaktak bird in the scorching summer heat thinks that he will be able to drink the monsoon rains in their entirety when they come, how could he ever do so with his tiny beak? Similarly, when the Lord sees his loving devotees so thirsty to taste the sweetness in full, but frustrated due to only being able to relish a small drop. And actually, sometimes we all experience this when we see Radha Golokananda in the morning. That, there's so much beauty there, and you can't really drink, or drink, using the word pibata, which means a drink, you can't really relish more than just a little bit. It's just like overwhelming. Isn't it? Do we sometimes feel like that when we see the deities? I mean, you all, of course, I don't have that compassion. But I mean, yeah, I mean, just be honest, we do feel like that because Krishna is so merciful, Radha Golokananda is so merciful. It's just like that. So Krishna is thinking, if my devotee cannot relish sufficiently all my sweetness, then it all is in vain. So this is how the deities are thinking. If we cannot relish all the sweetness, then it's all in vain. And so he extends his seventh sweetness, that's his compassion again, to his loving devotee. This compassion potency resides in the whirl of a lotus whose 8 petals are the seats of the Lord's 8 other energies. And there's some Sanskrit description here. These 8 energies stay on the 8 petals of the lotus, in whose whirl is the 9th energy called Anugraha, which means compassion, who rules like a great empress over them. And here's the saying: Krishna's Anugraha, Kripa Shakti, emanates from the Lord's lotus eyes. This means that it is showered over the devotee when he casts his merciful glance on them. So this is a little bit repetitive, so I'm not going to read everything here. When the Lord's willpower is piloted by this compassionate aspect, even the paragons of self-contentment, that means those who are just absorbed in neutrality, sages like Shukadeva and Shanaka, are overcome with astonishment at Krishna's virtues, and they give up their passive self-contentment to become devotees. In other words, they were Brahmavadis before. And when they see Krishna's compassion, or experiencing Krishna's compassion and virtues, they just give all that up. You know, they're very peaceful and happy. You know, they're happy, peaceful, Shanti, Om Shanti, Shanti. And then all of a sudden, Krishna manifests and says, wow! Didn't expect that to happen. Okay. Let's see what else. Yeah, this is quite interesting. Some of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's words and comments on his words. So in the Bhagavatam, there are actual descriptions about attaining a taste and seeing Krishna that I wanted to make reference to. There's in Bhagavatam 1.5.27 describes this ruchi, or having a taste of seeing Krishna. And the translation is, "O great sage," of course this is Narada Muni speaking, because Narada Muni followed the process of sadhana in order to come to the stage of pure devotional service. Of course, Narada Muni got the compassion and the mercy of the sages during the 4 months of the rainy season when he was a little kid, and then he started traveling, and he describes attaining ruchi, or a taste, in 1.5.27 in the Bhagavatam. "O great sage, as soon as I got a taste for the personality of Godhead, my attention to hear the Lord was unflinching. And as my taste developed, I could realize that it was only in my ignorance that I had accepted the gross and subtle coverings, for both the Lord and I are transcendental." That's beautiful. That's Bhagavatam, of course. Narada Muni attaining a taste for Krishna. This is even before he saw Krishna. I mean, of course, he saw Krishna for a few moments, and then Krishna disappeared. But he said, "In this life, you will not see me again." And then, let's see. And there's another verse, actually, in the same chapter. How we can attain that taste. That's 1.5.26, which actually comes before 1.5.27. "O Vyasadeva," so this is the evidence how to attain this particular taste and see Krishna. Narada Muni says to Vyasadeva, because he's explaining to Srila Vyasadeva, because Srila Vyasadeva asked Narada Muni, "How did you come to Krishna consciousness?" He says, O Vyasadeva, in that association, by the mercy of those great Vedantas, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. And thus, as I listened attentively, Shutrusho Shraddhanasha Vasudeva Kataruchi, my taste for hearing of the personality of God had increased at every step. In other words, in the beginning, one may not have that intense faith or taste, but if we have the trust that if we just keep hearing, it will grow and grow and grow and increases at every step. And then it's described later on in the next chapter of the Bhagavatam. Due to an outburst of love, my hairs eventually stood on end and my heart experienced a thrill of excessive bliss. And that's a description of his prema. The transcendental form of the Lord as it is satisfies the mind's desire and at once erases all mental incongruities. Upon losing sight of that form, this is when Narada Muni actually first got sight of the Lord. I suddenly got up, being perturbed, as is usual when one loses that which is desirable. So, anyway, more descriptions about taste from the Bhagavatam. This is from the 7th canto. O Brahman, just as iron automatically flies to a magnet when this is Prahlad Maharaj, when it comes close, so does my way of thinking and feeling become different when I come near Krishna, the wielder of the disc. And when one actually has a taste, here's what happens, according to the Bhagavatam in the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, text 40. He loudly laughs, cries, roars, and sings. That, of course, is a description of anubhavas. So these are some of the descriptions of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, desiring to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, any questions or comments? Yes. Yeah. Well, we have some doubts. It's not complete doubt. It's just that maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. Yeah, it's doubt. It's not really being an atheist. It's just, just, I mean, like, for example, you may hear some of the descriptions of Christian activities like lifting Govardhan Hill. How can you lift Govardhan Hill? A little kid lift Govardhan Hill. And hear all these things, forearms, whatever like that. So you may feel some doubt there. But at the same time, you have faith in Srila Prabhupada. And and having faith in Srila Prabhupada, well, I understand if I follow this process, these things will be revealed to me. So that's faith. It's not complete doubt and it's not complete faith. Uh-oh. Something happened. It's not so appropriate. Okay. Does that explain it? And faith grows by experience. Experience in seeing the devotees, those who are advanced in and personal experience. Like Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayati Asu Vairang Ganam Chaya the Hoitukam. That is, one progresses in Krishna consciousness. Krishna reveals things to one. And also one gets detachment from this material world. I mean, it's an amazing phenomena as one chants and hears and serves Krishna, then the things that were so interesting to you before, to any of us, not just to you, just become boring. And I can remember so many things that I really liked to do when I was young. When I first joined the movement, this is boring. Sometimes I'm on an airplane and I start watching one of the movies and it's just boring. And previously it would be just like my life and soul, watching some science fiction movie or something like that. And that's just, it's boring. The same thing. So anyway, these are symptoms that one's advancing and getting more faith. Jai Shri Shri Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda ki.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvanda Aravindalayatatam Bhagavatam Samasitam Buddhasundaram Dandar Tato Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Govindam Adipurusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusha Tamaham Bhajami Govinda Adipurusha Tamaham Bhajami Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Vikayanti Viramanti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govinda Adipurusha Tamaham Bhajami 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 Adipurusha
Going down. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Putandaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Damini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pacha Nivasesha Chunyavagade Pashacha Kesacharane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jia Dvaita Katata Jiva Sati Goloka Vrindadaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jia Dvaita Katata Jiva Sati Goloka Vrindadaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sade Goloka Vrinda Shri Advaita Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sade Goloka Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Kumlokinanu Radha Rokinanu Radha. Jaya Kumlokinanu Radha Rokinanu Radha. Jaya Radha. Jaya Radha, Radha, Radha. Jaya Radha, 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 Radha. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Sri Radhe, Jai Om Vishnupad. Founder Acharya. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadha Shiva Nikajai Krishna Govinath Sai Kunda Radha Kunda Oh, glory. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Navasesa Shunyavadi Pasyacha Deja Tarne.
Chandrika Vitaranam Vijavadu Jivanam Anado Jivanam Ratipadam Purnamrita Swadhanam Sapadamaj Napanam Paramidare Sri Krishna Sankirtanam Nanamakari Babudani Jasava Sakti Tatar Vidanyam Yaj Maranakava Etar Dishita Bhakti Bhagavam Mamami
Jai Bhaved Srinadapi Smichena Turoriva Srishnuna Amadida Madadena Kirtaniya Surare Nadanam Najanam Nisunarim Davidab Jatikadishikabaye Janmani Janmani Shvare Bhavata Bhakti and Hai Takitwaye Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Bam Vishme Bhavam Buddha Kripaya Tapapada Pankajas Dadu Lisa Sampachintia Nayanam Galuda Shudareha Vadadam Gadada Rubiagira Pulaka Nichitam Bapupadat, Abavnama Gune Bhavishiti, Yugaitam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravishaitam, Shunyaitam Jagat Sarvam, Govinda Vidahaname, Ashli Shiva Pada, Darshanamamritam Karotava, Yata Dadava Vadadata Lampato, Matmananata Stu Sevanaparaha. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon, is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you've invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, making oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I have fallen to the ocean of birth and death. Please fix me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up? And when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and I shall remain sick. Even he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shikshashika ki jai.